I started a Facebook group called Leaving California. I, as a conservative, had not been happy in California for many years. In fact, I tell people my vote didn't count in California for 30 years. It started with Gray Davis back in the early 2000s, and California just kept progressing and progressing in a direction I was not happy with. And I believed I wasn't the only person who was not happy living in California. So I started this Facebook group called Leaving California. I saw businesses leaving. I saw articles in the paper about businesses leaving. I saw news articles and people leaving. And so what I did was I just set up Google alerts and I just started posting those in the group. And it really grew organically. After 6 months, I had 200 members. Probably after a year, I had maybe 1,000 or two. But then things just kept getting progressively worse in California. And so people would hear about the group. And then they would start joining the group, and it really just started growing at that point, especially as things led up to the pandemic.
So what are the reasons why people are leaving California? Because it still has a lot to offer. It's nice weather.
Notice you stopped at nice weather. What else? It doesn't have a whole lot more to offer than nice weather. It's beautiful, of course. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. There is a lot of opportunity here. But you're punished for that opportunity if you succeed.
There's the tech world, the biotech, and if you're in certain categories of professions, you do well here.
You do, but they've got tech in Dallas, they've got tech in Utah, they've got tech, tech is everywhere. They've got tech in Colorado Springs. Yeah, certainly there's a benefit to it, but there's just so many negatives, and really it's almost like the straw that breaks the camel's back. At some point, people reach a breaking point, whether they're trying to buy their first home. How much are you putting down if you're trying to buy your first home, which is a 2-bedroom condo for $800,000? You're putting down $90,000. Well, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's completely out of reach. So there's the whole housing shortage issue. And then you get into things like homelessness, you get into things like the cost of living. We're seeing in this country right now around 10% inflation, maybe 9%. I don't have this is off the top of my head, but I believe California's had 10% inflation for years. And every year you get less paycheck or less out of your paycheck than you did the year before because of all the increases.
You can't afford less because the increase on salaries are not as much as the increase of the cost of living. Right?
No. If you're middle class working a job, you're not getting well, think about it. If you've got 10% inflation, that's after tax money. So you've got to make 15 to 20% more gross just to make that 10%, just to stay even. And if you think about it, we had the climate change taxes that they inaugurated. Well, that greatly increased the cost of gasoline,
gas and all that.
And power. I lived in the Bay Area, in the East Bay, in a 2,500 square foot home. And when I first moved in, my power bill was $200 a month. Now, granted, we didn't have to run the air conditioner much because just like the rest of the Bay Area, it was pretty mild climate. But by the time I left, it was running $400 a month, just a couple of years later. And that's to double that, just that one thing alone. And every year, of course, property taxes go up 1% because your houses are going up in value. So, food prices, everything contributes to that. And then, to me, Sacramento's answer to any problem is to raise taxes or raise regulations, which, of course, raises the cost of doing business and the cost of living here.
So you mentioned you started this group in 2018. Yeah. Why did you do it?
Because I knew I wasn't the only person who wasn't happy. Yeah, and I wanted to look in other places of the country and commiserate with people who were also not happy living here. And again, we all love the weather. We all love the beauty of California. We love that you can, be at the beach in the morning and Lake Tahoe in the evening, two completely different places. But if you can't pay your bills, what good is that? What good is it to live in a beautiful state like this? And we can also talk about traffic and the fact that California doesn't allow enough houses to be built. The cost of building a house is extraordinary, the permits and all that process. So people have to live much further out, so guess what they're doing? They're spending most of their day in their car commuting. I also want to add, just real quick, so I moved to California from Texas in 1986. Surprisingly, the cost of gasoline in California was less than it was in Texas at that time.
In 86?
In 86. That was one of the few things that cost less. And of course, rents were higher, everything was higher. But that just tells you how far we've come. You know, today, I don't know what it is in Texas today. It might be $3.50 a gallon, something like that. I know I paid $3.30 in Florida 2 days ago, but I haven't seen a gas station here, but I'm guessing it's $5-6 a gallon.
$5, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not an accident. That's not because gas companies or oil companies want to charge Californians more. There's a reason for that. It's increase in taxes. It's the blends they're required to make. So all of that just contributes to the increased cost of living and to me, the government overreach. And let me add this also. I believe living in California, the government looks at taxpayers as serving them. I don't look at the government as public servants. I believe they think the public serves them so that they can implement their policies and all of their grandiose ideas to make this the best place on earth, when really what the effect that it's having is it's creating dystopia. It's creating a place where the average person can't live on an average salary and enjoy an average life or a high quality life even. So I believe that's a big reason a lot of people are leaving.